Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, which I apologize is a tad late today. And that's because I was up very late last night. Why was I up so late? Thank you for taking the bait. It was because I was reviewing the new trailers that debuted at 8 p.m. yesterday, and that's Sony's Pixels and Insidious Chapter 3. And this is a new thing Hollywood is doing where they release trailers in the evening. And from my perspective, that requires coming back to the office to review them, editing them, putting them up, and I actually found myself here till around 11:30 p.m. Now, I'm happy to do it. I love talking trailers with you guys, but I am curious, what do you think about this new thing of releasing trailers in the evening? From a business perspective, if I were the studio, I'd be like, hey, I think if we release them during the day, in the morning, they usually break no later than noon, people can discuss them throughout the day with their coworkers and other students and just people they run into. And it's a welcome distraction also from the day. You're like, hey, let me take 5 minutes to watch this awesome new trailer, and then I can join in with the conversation. We kind of have a routine down, don't we? And I think that it works, and I think that's why trailers have become so popular online, and why when you often go to a theater these days, you've already seen all the trailers, which is maybe something they should take into account, because on a side note, I guess as a side note of a side note, but I think they should play less trailers in the theater because it takes about 20 minutes to get to the actual movie, and I don't know about you, but when I get hot food, or really any food, I've finished it by the time the actual movie starts. So either they should play all the trailers, while people are sitting down, or they should give us maybe like a 10-15 minute break after the trailers to go and get our food then. But anyway, I think that when you debut the trailer in the evening, people just kind of, sit on the experience. There's really no one to talk to about it until the next morning, and then it's old news. And then also, you're probably not even at a computer. Now, I understand that sometimes they debut trailers late at night to coincide with a TV show. Like Disney has liked to do that because they pimp out a Marvel trailer to draw eyeballs to some other division of the Disney empire. But I think even they realized that's not a great idea because they were going to do that for American Crime, and then they realized, I think, that they shouldn't bury the final trailer for Avengers 2 like that, and it ended up coming out the day before during the day. Oh, I do like that trend where they have you unlock the trailer via Twitter. That's really, really smart, and it gets it trending, and they were able to get Avengers Assemble trending for quite some time and generate a massive amount of tweets globally. That's great marketing, and I like that quite a bit. It's fun, too. Everybody kind of gets on this, we all it's like almost like, hey, everybody, come over here. And, it's just fun. I like the party atmosphere, the event atmosphere of these really big trailer releases. But 8 o'clock at night, I don't know. I think that from a business perspective, not a good idea. And also, the Pixels trailer was supposed to be released, I believe, during the day. And many of us were like, where's this Pixels trailer? It was kind of annoying, I think, when we got to around 4 or 5 o'clock. I know I was certainly frustrated because I was waiting for it to drop. But I think they might have held on to it because it was St. Patrick's Day yesterday. And they were like, nobody's going to pay attention to our trailer. Although I have to say, I don't think anybody really paid that much attention to it in the evening. I think the numbers, the views for that, they could blame Adam Sandler, which would be very scary, but I'm sure Sony would prefer to blame St. Patrick's Day for the low impact that the Pixels trailer had. And considering the type of movie it is, I think it should have been bigger. And also, because I have to be honest, I don't think that St. Patrick's Day in the evening is any better, and it's probably worse than St. Patrick's Day during the day. Because, it's a big drinking holiday, and I think after a day of drinking and festivities and national pride, you're not going to want to go and watch the new Adam Sandler trailer. But anyway, I digress. Not only was that trailer not come out, but there was really no movie news yesterday. Just Hollywood itself decided to take a day off. So on the plus side, though, that means today is an all-viewer question episode. I've got 4 great questions to go through, but before we do that, there's one other thing I want to do, and that's just to remind you that today is your last day to get in your one-sentence review to potentially win one of the 3 Blu-rays for Mockingjay Part 1 that Dolby Atmos has given me to give to you. So what you have to do, again, is in case you haven't done this yet, is you have to tweet me, so you have to do @Grace Randolph and include the hashtag Dolby Atmos, and then with the remaining characters that you have in your tweet, give me your one-sentence review for Mockingjay Part 1. It can be positive, it can be negative, you can not be sure how you feel about the movie. Just have fun with it and be true to your opinion, and that will shine through your tweet, I'm sure. So you have till the end of today, and I will announce the winners tomorrow morning. And of course their tweets. Alright, so fittingly, let's get to our first question from Mockingjay73. And Mockingjay73 says, Grace, I have a question. It was recently brought to my attention that Adam Warlock's cocoon is in the possession of the collector. Yes, and we saw it on screen, briefly, but you'd have to really know what you were looking for. But many people do, so that's why we know this. So anyway, Mockingjay73 continues saying, given his major involvement in the Infinity War, it's true, big part of that story, do you think Marvel will use that character, and if so, who do you think should play him? Thank you so much. I love watching morning movie news before bed. Smiley face Ethan from Colorado. Oh, well, good evening to you then, Ethan. And perhaps if you're online before bed, I'd be particularly interested to know how you feel about the late night trailer debuts. All right, so as for your question, I'm going to first make a little bit of a joke about it, which might actually be somewhat true, but then I'll answer in earnest. But I have to say, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if they took the Adam Warlock role and gave it to Robert Downey Jr. He's probably like with a red pen reading these comics being like, that's an important role, give it to me. And while, I like to poke fun at Robert Downey Jr. and, that he doesn't quite like to share the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think there's actually been a precedent set for this as he took Hank Pym's only major storyline, besides spousal abuse, but I don't think Robert Downey Jr. wants any of that. And of course I'm talking about the creation of Ultron, which of course is, Hank Pym's major and pretty much only defining moment in comics, and it's a doozy, so it's been okay that it's been his only one, but Robert Downey Jr. Took that for himself. So don't be surprised if they are like, you know what, we have enough characters here, we're starting to establish new ones, we're having a really rough time here, unless Adam Warlock shows up in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. That could happen, but I have to say, I feel the Guardians of the Galaxy as a team still needs to be fleshed out a bit as characters. I don't really think they need any new people added to that. I know that James Gunn has said he's planning to add new characters, but I would be like, go find a better villain. I think we still need to learn more about Star-Lord and his crew before we go adding on new individuals. But if you're going to see Adam Warlock appear, Ethan, I think it would be in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. But still, I feel that you're probably most likely, in all seriousness, all joking aside, going to see some already established character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe take on that role. Perhaps it might even be Star-Lord. I'm sure that they're looking to do a big crossover for Infinity War, considering the success right out of the gate of Marvel Cosmic. That's really, really encouraging. And of course, they're banking a lot on Marvel Cosmic with Inhumans and Captain Marvel. She gets her powers from, she might be an Earthbound hero, but her powers are alien in nature. So I think they're really looking to expand that universe, and why introduce another new character when you can give Chris Pratt, who's very popular and on every studio's wish list, a major role in the film. Because otherwise, what would they do? Because of course, I don't believe they were at all really a part of the original Infinity War storyline. So they need something, and so why have Adam Warlock? Although clearly they know about Adam Warlock and have him in their cinematic universe if his cocoon is there at all. This is the problem with Easter eggs. The filmmakers are having fun, which is great. God bless them, and their respect for us, fans of the comics. But I think at the same time, they can maybe muddle things and then maybe potentially open doors that they can't afford to go through. So we'll see what happens. I'm curious, what do you think, Ethan? Do you want to see Adam Warlock come around? I'll see what I can do about a casting episode for you. And then, or do you like the idea maybe of Star-Lord taking that position? All right, let's move over to the second viewer question of the day. Thank you, Ethan. This one is from Michael James. Everybody else today is using their actual name as their YouTube handle, which is different change of pace. Although I would ask, if you don't use your regular name, sign it like Ethan did, because it's just good to know who I'm talking to. All right, so this is from Michael James, and Michael says, question, Grace. Should the Academy Awards replace the gender-specific categories of Best Actor/Actress and Best Supporting Actor/Actress for the gender-neutral categories of just Best Leading Performance and Best Supporting Performance? Acting is not limited by gender, especially considering such things as performance capture and even voice acting, allowing for cross-gender acting. Although you don't really see that very much. Even when people do motion capture, they cast gender correctly, also with voice work. Although that's not the case in television animation, interestingly enough, but it is the case with feature films. But Michael continues saying, so shouldn't a performance, irrespective of the performer, be judged the same? No other category is gender specific, So shouldn't the acting categories change as such and it may be expand to 10 nominations? No to the expanding. I don't like the expanding. I think we've seen that with Best Picture, and that it creates a whole bunch of nominees that don't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning. So it's just frustrating to see them part of the pomp and circumstance being like, why are you even here, man? There's no way you're going to win. And the person's like, I know, but at least I get to go to the Oscars. You know, I guess they do have that going for them. But I find that frustrating, and they're even considering, as you might have seen, to go take Best Picture back to 5 entries because the 10 experiment just hasn't worked out. They haven't nominated different types of movies. They've just been able to nominate more of the same. But as for gender-neutral acting categories, I think that the only way that this can change is if you get to a point where everybody has the same kind of quality in the roles that they're offered and can choose from. I still think that despite the progress that women are making on screen, the female roles are not on par with the opportunities given to male actors. Like, for instance, who the heck could beat Eddie Redmayne as Stephen Hawking? Even Michael Keaton couldn't do it. But I think that, I think the exception, though, is Rosamund Pike in Gone Girl. I think she was on par with the type of role you usually see go to a male actor. But overall, there's no way that any of the other women in that category could compete with that performance. It's just unfair. And I think that you seldom see women. I mean, I think that's why Julianne Moore won her Oscar, because she played the sick person, which is unusual. Usually women, as I said in my coverage, are the ones reacting to the illness and caring for the person who's ill, but they usually don't get the showy roles. And of course, while Julianne Moore was very good, Alzheimer's isn't as showy a role as ALS. Isn't that horrible, though, that we would have that kind of conversation when, of course, the results and the effect on the individual are no less devastating? And I think still Alice did a great job depicting the mental anguish and devastation that, you couldn't see on the outside. So it didn't seem as serious, but Julianne Moore made it clear that it was very serious. And I think that the Oscars, I wish they would be so political and also just so easy to manipulate, because they always fall for the same thing. It's unfortunate, and I think the Oscars, I really wish they would be majorly overhauled and the way they campaign would be changed. But overall, my answer to your question, Michael, is that the roles, the opportunities to the two different groups of actors still is not on par. So I think that that's kind of why you're seeing a division, just really to handicap it. Because if you didn't have, I think really what's happening here is you're protecting actresses and making sure that 5 get nominated in each category every year. Because they have a hard time filling those categories, and a lot of times, we're never like, oh, that actress got burned, she should have been nominated, but she wasn't. We're like, man, who's going to take this 5th spot? But with actor, there's always people where we're like, oh, they should have been in there, like David Oyelowo. And I think you're just going to have a situation where if you had a gender-neutral category, it would just skew heavily male. And you would just be like, oh, great, we only have to nominate 4 women because we can get David Oyelowo in there. And I think that would be good for David Oyelowo, and also in terms of more diversity, in terms of ethnicity and the nominees. But I don't think it should be at the expense of someone else. Should you, have maybe different ethnicities for categories? It would certainly help, but then I just think it would become just so obvious that how unfair and unjust the nominees are. You just have to basically scrap the whole system and start anew. But that's that's the short answer to a pretty complicated and unfortunate situation. All right, so thank you, Michael. Now we have another Michael for the third question of the day, Michael King, and Michael says, "Hey Grace, what Marvel comic property that isn't in the Marvel Cinematic Universe could be a good Disney animated movie like Big Hero 6 was? I think it would be a good idea to do more after the success of Big Hero 6. I was thinking Squirrel Girl could work as a Disney animated movie." I gotta say, Michael, I appreciate your question. I think it's a great one. I'm very curious to see what everybody else thinks in the viewer question. That's in the comments. That's one of the reasons I picked it as a viewer question. But I personally, I'm not a Squirrel Girl fan. I just, doesn't think it's that. No, I don't think she's that great. Just a little bit too not serious enough. I know that they can have fun with Marvel comics and Marvel properties, but she's just a little too, outside of, because what could she really do? I liked when they used her as a babysitter for the Avengers. That was a great Michael Brian Michael Bendis idea, but it just didn't quite work out. As for animation, I think there's Runaways, obviously. I think people would love to see a Runaways movie. They were considering doing one live action. But I think, as animation, it would skew a little too close to Big Hero 6. And I would like to maybe see just, a singular character focused on, because I think Big Hero 6 suffered from lack of character development. Even with Hero, I think Hero could have been developed much more. But honest, I am going to recommend a group, though. I think that even though they're going to be a live action movie, I think the Inhumans could be a great animated movie, because you have Medusa's hair, which could be really great in animation, and also I think that they're the closest thing that Marvel has to princesses. I'm talking about Medusa and Crystal. I think they would be fantastic in that regard, and of course they have all the royal intrigue and arranged marriages, and I just think that could be really interesting. And also it would give Disney Animation the chance to return to space. I love that aspect of Treasure Planet. I thought that worked out really well, and we haven't seen Disney so much be able to do that. And they would be able to go into the far reaches and distance of space, because the Inhumans, of course, even though they started out on Earth, actually, interestingly enough, and went to the moon, they do travel and interact with other alien species. And so maybe that would be a good way to tie the MCU into animation. Wouldn't that be fun? You could have Robert Downey Jr., you could have a real cool world situation where you have live action characters pop over into animation. But of course that isn't going to happen, but I think that would be a great property for that. Otherwise though, I think it's tricky. I think it's tough. I don't like superheroes so much going into animation personally. I like keeping them separate. I think you don't want to have too much crossover, because I think each of the Disney divisions is going to lose their identity. And they already merge in the theme parks and in the merchandising, and I think that they're better off, and in the video games as well. I just think that in the long run, it would be better for them to each do their thing independently. And I would love to see animation maybe take on more adaptations of novels, maybe a little more serious storytelling, and become a little more complex in that regard. And I love what Disney is doing with their live-action fairy tales. I think that Disney's compartmentalized really well right now, and I would like to see it stay that way. So that's my answer to your question, Michael. Thank you so much for asking it. And again, I'm curious to see if anyone else has any properties they think might be a good fit with Disney Animation from Marvel. All right, now for the final question of the day. Speaking of book adaptations, this comes from Shailyn Fritzler. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Shailyn, but Shailyn Fritzler. And Shailyn says, "Hi, Grace. Sorry for all the exclamation points. I just really love it if you answered my question." Happy to do so. Thank you, Shailyn, for a great question. And Shailyn continues saying, "I am a huge fan of books." That's awesome. That's so cool you're a fan of books and movies. Often people go one or the other, and I think it's great that you're right there in the middle. You get to enjoy both worlds. But Shailyn says, and it's really obvious, the trend of making books, and it's really obvious the trend of making books into movies. Oh, I see. So, Shailyn, you like books being made into movies, which is also good, because a lot of book readers don't like the adaptations because they feel it leaves a lot on the page. But that kind of has to do with Shailyn's question. She says, but only a few have succeeded, like Harry Potter, Twilight, and the Hunger Games. Now, what are movie makers getting wrong? She means, why aren't these adaptations working? And why are so many people annoyed by this movie craze? Thanks, I love your show, and I always take your opinion into account when I see a movie, smiley face. Thank you, Shailyn. That means so much. All right, so Shailyn, I feel so bad about, I really want to get everybody's name right. But, so I was thinking, well, what young adult adaptations haven't succeeded? Well, there's The Mortal Instruments, which I actually really liked. I feel bad. I think that's Lily Collins' fault. I think that she just has been rejected by mainstream audiences. Beautiful Creatures, that did not succeed. The Giver, not a big fan of The Giver. Ender's Game also didn't work out. And Percy Jackson, which I've enjoyed, but they've made 2 movies now, and it just, I do not think they'll be making a third. Although another book adaptation that I think at least has a cult fan reaction fan base is The Perks of Being a Wallflower, also starring Logan Lerman. And it's good to see a book like that get some notice. And even though it wasn't a huge hit, Stephen Chbosky and Emma Watson from that movie have actually gone on, and they're going to be a big part of the Beauty and the Beast live action adaptation. So that's a great end to that story, or at least next chapter. Hopefully it's not the end for either of them. So as for your question, though, I think I think what they get wrong is that they're too focused on the formula that they feel that Twilight and the Hunger Games, etc., have introduced. Like, for instance, I think the Hunger Games has really benefited from moving away from the whole love triangle thing. I mean, it's kind of there, but Gale very obviously is like, I know you don't like me as much as Peeta. Let's just get around it. Stop being so polite. I'm in the friend zone, Katniss. I get it. That's a district. That's the worst district, the friend district. But I think that, for a while, they were really obsessed with these love triangles. Hollywood felt, well, it works so well for Twilight. I mean, Hollywood is a real formulaic town. They're very risk averse. So if one thing works, they're like, let's just keep doing that. And if it doesn't work, they're like, oh, well, maybe it was the casting fault. We cast bad actors. And sometimes that also is to blame. But I think they just need to be true to the story. And again, I feel they have to hire really good writers. It's so important, if you're adapting a novel, you want a good writer doing that as a screenwriter. And unfortunately, screenwriters are not so beloved these days in Hollywood, and certainly not particularly valued. So I think that that's one of the problems. Also formulaism, as I just said. And then also I think that the other problem is that this, as you said, backlash against young adult adaptations. And it's a little bit unfortunate, but I think what it is that, and I think the internet is largely run and ruled by people who are fans of comics and those kind of blockbusters, etc., especially when you pay attention to the movie area. And this, by the way, is just my opinion. I'd be very curious to know how everybody else feels about it. But this is just what I've come up with after seeing the Twilight, revulsion from Comic-Con fans, etc. So basically, you have a very distinct group who's already kind of, the loudest voice when it comes to movie fandom. And I think that's really what you're seeing here, and there's a challenge to that supremacy. I think that comic books and science fiction have always, for a very long time now, comic books are an add-on to the science fiction fan base. But, thanks to franchises like Star Wars and Star Trek, etc., you've really seen that group of fans be in charge of the voice of fans when it comes to movies, especially genre films. But now when you have these other, properties come in, young adult novels, which tend to be a very large female fan base, I think it's tough to share the space. And you guys the young adult fan base is so massive and also so powerful. They're a genuine challenge to the sci-fi and fanboy and fangirl community. Now, I think the positive thing, it's kind of like Romeo and Juliet. You have the two warring families. But I think the good thing is that there are many Romeos and Juliets who love both things, who love young adult adaptations, and who also love the sci-fi and the comic book stuff, like myself. And I think that also when you see more people entering any space like movies, ideally, we'll rub off on each other, or the two groups will rub off on each other, and they'll discover each other's properties. Like, I always felt people would get upset with the Twilight people at Comic-Con, I think because they took up so much space and they really crowded into Hall H and made it hard to get in there for the other panels. And that's on Comic-Con for not clearing out the hall after each panel. I really don't like that practice. I think it's dangerous, and I think it doesn't make for a good experience for the attendees. But the thing is that you have all these people coming to Comic-Con for the first time because of Twilight. As long as they're there, that's a great opportunity to expose them to other great properties they might not be aware of in the comic book sector, like the new Batgirl, for instance. And you can see also comics also really benefiting from this influx of female readers, I guess in this case. But you're seeing a lot of female comics and female-centric comics. And you know what? They're just well done, so guys are enjoying them as well. And at the end of the day, you just want to see quality properties. But I think that that's the problem. I think it's just a challenge to the supremacy of one fan group, and that's why there's a bit of a backlash. It'll fade, though, and I don't think either group is going anywhere. And that's great. That just means more people are going to the movies, and we have more bigger films that everybody loves. So that's my answer to your question, Shaylin. I hope you appreciated some of that insight, and I hope it helped to answer your question. Thank you everybody today for your questions. Ethan, Michael James, Michael King, and Shaylin, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I look forward to hearing your thoughts down below, and let me know what you'd like to see covered tomorrow, as well as any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.